Are you seeking fulfillment for your life? Do you want freedom from fear? That's why we're here. Welcome to Jesus 101, introducing you to the real Jesus. And now, here's your host, Elizabeth Talbot.
Welcome to Jesus 101. I'm kind of sad, really, because this is the last episode of our series on the book of Acts. We have entitled the series Proclaiming Jesus, and this is our last one, and I hope you have enjoyed the series and will continue to join us for future series. But today we have one of those chapters that is life-changing for me, and I'm hoping it will be for you as well. I want to start with this picture. This is a beautiful picture of a storm and the lighthouse in the middle, and actually there is a person there that eventually is rescued here. But the point here has a beautiful verse. It says, my God is my rock on whom I take refuge. This was given to my mother by her twin sister, my Aunt Shirley, when my mother was diagnosed with cancer. And you know, it's hard when you get a diagnosis like that. It kind of rocks your world, and you find that pretty much the only place where you can take refuge is really your God and what you believe about Him and how you know how the story ends. But she came with this picture, and it was so impactful to me when she walked in with this picture, because it was exactly what we were going through as a family. Here's the storm, and here's the lighthouse, and God is our refuge. And well, my mother was, for several years, she was able to recover, and we had great trips together. Eventually, she passed away. What's so amazing is that God continues to be my lighthouse in regards to losing my parents, because I know how this story ends. I have read the last chapter of the world's history, and I know that I will see them again. And if I didn't know that, I don't know how we would go through such a loss, right? As parents, and maybe you have lost a loved one. But we have a refuge, a strength in the storms of life, not just for death, but any type of storm. And today we're going to discuss a storm that Paul will go through, and hopefully we can learn great things about being sustained in the middle of the storm. Mm-hmm. And we thank Dr. and Pastor Dwight Nelson for being with us.
It's been such a treat for me, Elizabeth. I just can't believe the time has flown by.
I know. And you know, we are so blessed to have you, and you hang in there with us for the whole series long. And thank you for all your insights.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. And today we are going to see one of my favorite stories in the book of Acts, because I think there's more to it than just the storm.
Dramatic finale to the book.
And I think we are being taught a lot of things about ourselves, how to go through life and storms in life with the assurance that we know how the story ends. And isn't it amazing to go through life knowing how the story ends?
Yeah.
It makes all the difference in the world, right? So in chapter 27, we have Paul finally going to Rome, on a ship. And, he tells them, be careful, because this is a bad season for us to...
Fall. It's moving away. It's moving towards winter. Bad time to travel the Mediterranean. Anytime in history. I mean, it's just a bad season, fall, winter.
Yeah, yes. And I'm going to say something. I don't know if people know this. I planned my trip to the Mediterranean around this chapter. Because what happens...
You planned your trip?
Yeah, when I was going to go.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, because I knew that this wind, the Euraculo, is still there until today, in a particular season of the year. So I knew this story well, and when they told me that I was going to the Mediterranean taking a cruise, I said, well, let me see exactly what month we can go, because I know this
wind. We have the big storm. I want to be there for the storm.
No.
Huh?
I want to be there when the storm is not there. So I planned it so that I'm not there when the wind was there.
Oh, I thought you wanted to experience the storm.
Are you kidding me? I hate wind. Okay, so here we are with Paul, and they go to this little place called Fair Havens, where the ship stops, And they sail with difficulty to this little place. And he says, like you said, it's the fast, it's the Day of Atonement.
Right.
It has already passed. So it's the between September and October. And so Paul gives them an advice.
I'm giving you some seasoned advice. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's on verse 10 if you want to read it.
Men, I can see that our voyage is going to be disastrous. Listen, guys, if we move beyond this little port, it's nothing but trouble with a capital T. It's going to be disastrous and bring great loss to the ship and the cargo and to our own lives also. We could all be lost.
Yes.
But the centurion, and this is just one of those classic moments, do I listen to this man I respect for his deep spirit, but or the professionals?
Yes, and listen to the professionals.
He does, yeah. They say, no, let's make a run for it.
You know, they were supposed to go to a place called Phoenix. Do you remember Gilligan Island? Gilligan Island?
You know, I wonder where Gilligan got his start. Was it in the book of Acts?
No, but do you remember? Because I was a kid when this show was on,
Yes.
and it was supposed to be a 2-hour trip,
Yes.
and it ended. They get lost.
Shipwrecked.
Well, the same thing happens to Paul, because Paul, if you look at the map, Phoenix is like right there
Around
next
the
to
corner.
Fair Havens.
around the
It's
corner.
supposed to take them a few hours. As a matter of fact, I brought a map here. That is from the Andrews Bible, the Andrews University Bible, and I enlarged it so the cameras can. So here's Crete. This is the island.
Okay.
Look here. This is Fair Havens, and this is Phoenix. It's right next to it.
All they have to do is just get around that
Just there.
little
And
peninsula.
the reason why they want to go is because Phoenix is better
harbor.
prepared for the winter, right? Well, if you would continue this map, they end up in Malta over here. And an island over here, instead of the 2-hour, 3-hour, or 4-hour trip, and they end up in another island far, far away because they hit this wind that I was afraid of, and that's why I planned my whole trip to the Mediterranean around that. So
It calls it, you know, in the NIV, it's called this wind of hurricane force, the nor'easter.
yes,
Yeah.
and that's what it is, verse 14. But before very long, we're in chapter 27 of Acts, verse 14. Before very long, they're rushed down from the land, a violent wind. The name here is Euracula, but actually Euracula means northeaster, right? So it's a wind of hurricane force. And they start this bargaining with the storm. I don't know, in storms of life, have you ever experienced bargaining with the storm? See if you can ride the storm, see if what happens. And they start bargaining with the storm, you know, to see if they can ride it out. And well, they're not having real luck. And so tell us what they did next.
Well, you have a whole series of nautical moves here. Do you want the whole 9
whatever.
yards?
No, real fast. We can do it. Yeah.
Yeah. So they pass the lee of a small island. We're just going to make this a little hop, skip, and a jump.
Yeah.
We'll be fine. The captain says, "Don't worry. I've done this before."
Exactly.
But that wind comes, and it just. And of course, it's all sailing. I mean, we're not talking about a motor and somehow steering.
No, they're sailing.
It's all wind-driven.
Well, I love my prop. Do you love my
I
prop?
love
This is
it,
a bit,
yeah.
And I had to look up some of these little
Nautical
names.
terms?
Yeah, like they get the ship's boat, and what is the ship's boat, or they has all the names, right? Well, there is a little boat, and it's actually in here. Every big ship had a little boat that they towed, so that when they got close to land, they would use a little boat.
Like a little life
Yeah,
raft.
they towed it. Well, when the winds came and the storms came, they had to put it inside. And it says that with difficulty, they actually were able to put the ship's boat under control inside. They brought it up. And then they did all kinds of things. They started throwing things.
Well, because they're trying to lighten the load. Just don't let this thing go down.
And they throw the main yard out. They do all kinds of things that I always call it a developmental progression of hopelessness.
It just keeps getting worse.
It keeps getting worse.
No matter what they do, it gets worse.
Yeah, and I think this is a good time for us to stop, for you to be able to get this as a personal thing. The storms of life, sometimes are hard, but the hardest trials are not the ones that we would consider hardest, are the ones that are the longest. When you don't see the end in sight, and it's like you're there, and you don't know how this is going to end, and it's never ending. So we're going to show you a video for you to be able to appropriate this story on the storms of life. We're going to watch it now and then go back to the storm so that you can actually have an incarnational experience with this story.
I know your story. I've read it cover to cover. And I know the storms that will come. The waves will swell and the sky will darken. Though you'll fight against the current, you'll be swept away. You'll feel helpless and abandoned, and you'll wonder where I am in the midst of it all. I know this isn't the way you thought our relationship would work, but my plans are not for my comfort or yours. My purposes are always and only an expression of love. The scars in my hands are proof that love will sometimes lead you directly into the storm. Though you can't understand my plans, you can trust in one thing, that I am entirely good. You can't even imagine how good I am, and my plan for you is no different. When you shout asking where I am, know that I am right behind you, with my arms wrapped tightly around you, whispering, I will never let go. For you are the pinnacle of my creation and the center of my affection. There will come a day when I will quiet every storm and wipe away every tear. In that day, there will be no more pain or death. But until that day comes, I will be your anchor in this storm.
So now that we are linking personally, that we are actually incarnating this story, let's continue their development of hopelessness when they're trying everything they can and it's not working. So which verse are you going to take us to?
Well, if we want the actual language, go back to 18. We took such a violent battering from the storm that the next day they began to throw the cargo off. In other words, they're worried about if we hit high ground, if we hit a sandy bar, we lodge in it, and it'll just disassemble.
Yes, the whole thing.
Yeah, just take it apart. Every bash breaks off
yes,
more
that's
lumber.
why two verses before they put cables under the ship to try to keep it all together. I mean, they're all doing all kinds of things that they can, right?
And on the third day, you look at verse 19. Okay, there goes the tackle. We can't control this. It's a fury beyond our imagination. And so off the tackle goes, which you need on a ship.
Yeah.
And then for 3 days.
Actually, this is the third day, but they go on like this for a couple of weeks, actually.
You look at verse 20. I mean, somebody turned the lights out. The whole planet is just black to them because the clouds, no sun, no moon, no stars.
Let me read it, verse 20. Since neither sun nor stars appeared for many days, and no small storm was assailing us, from then on, all hope of our being saved was gradually abandoned.
And notice we means Luke as well.
Yes.
So Luke is saying, I've been on some big ships and some big storms, but nothing like this.
Yes, we abandoned, hope of being saved.
When I was a kid, growing up in Japan, it was before plane travel, if you can believe that.
Really? What was in the first?
They hadn't even invented electricity when I was born.
Oh, no, that explains a lot. Okay, now I get it.
But anyway, so we would take ships around the world. I've been out on some doozy of storms, and we're talking about big ships. Now, this is not a very big ship, and Paul's ship was not a big one either.
Well, 276 passengers.
Yeah, but that's not a big ship.
Okay.
But these big iron vessels, and when they're hitting those waves, and that front end goes up, and then it goes down, and there's nothing left in your stomach. These guys have not eaten in days. Because you can't. You're just too sick.
Yeah, exactly. As a matter of fact, not only they abandon all hope, but we're going to be told later that they've been like this for 14 days.
Yeah. So Paul gets up in verse 21. They'd gone a long time without food. You can understand why you can't keep it down.
Yeah.
Paul stands before them, and of course you love what Paul does now. Hey guys, I just want to tell you something. Before I say another word, may I remind you what my suggestion was, that we stay? in Fairhaven?
Yes.
Cut.
Yeah.
We don't need to hear that, Paul.
It actually says in verse 21, you ought to have followed my advice. But now let me tell you what message I have for you.
But I urge you, verse 23, to keep up your courage because not one of you is going to be lost, right?
Yeah.
Why? How do you know this, Paul? Because last night, now here is the moment. Yeah, last night, an angel of God to whom I belong, this God to whom I belong and whom I serve, the angel stood beside me and he said, Paul, don't be afraid. You're going to stand trial before Caesar. God has graciously given you your life and all the lives on this ship.
Isn't that amazing?
Man, in the midst of this fury.
Of the storm, they get an assurance. And Paul said, be of good cheer. And even the angel told Paul, don't be afraid, because not only I'm preserving your life, but I'm giving you
the whole ship.
And this was against what Paul had said, because in his advice back on verse 10, he said,
great loss of life.
Yeah, but God says, you know, Paul, you're not going to have loss of life. Now, can I stop there and make an application?
Please.
You know, you will see in a moment that this is more than the actual storm. God is teaching, the first century church that even though they're in the middle of a lot of things, they already have the assurance of salvation, you know. And I think one of the hardest things in life is when you're in between, you know. I brought 2 bookends. This church, the church in the book of Acts, the book of Acts was written for a church in between. Because Jesus had already died, and therefore the kingdom of God had already started, and Jesus said so. But now they're waiting for him to come again and take over the world, so that then there's no more evil. So they're living in between, right? Between one thing and the other. Now, many of us all of us are already still living in the same way, in between. The second coming has not yet come. We're waiting for God to come and finish evil and cancer and divorce and death and all of that. But we're already assured of the victory because Jesus said how this story ends. But we're living in between. So how do we live in between? And I think this story actually is going to give us a clue of that. But I don't know, have you ever been in between?
I'm always in between. But I like the way you put it. It's between the already. Okay, so we know what's behind us. That's secure.
We already know what has happened.
And for a Christian, what's already behind us is Calvary.
Yeah.
We have that stake in the ground.
Yes. The not yet.
But the not yet, of course,
is the benefits of the cross. We know how this ends because the blood of Jesus Christ has saved us. So we know he's going to take over. So we know he wins.
So when Jesus is in the little fishing skiff and they're in a storm, you remember, multiple times.
Yes.
And he says to them, why were you afraid?
Yes.
Do you remember his next line?
Let's see, which one?
Why didn't you have faith? Where is your faith? You said, how do you live in the in-between? That's it. Jesus is saying, look, you can choose to live in fear. Fear is a way, and a lot of the secular Western world, a lot of the world self-medicates itself to absolve fear, okay? So we use whatever it is to kind of just lose it in our minds for that moment of just kind of painlessness.
Yeah.
You can live with fear and self-medicate, or you can live with faith and believe that the best is yet to come.
Yes.
And you will survive this storm. One way or the other, you have God's assurance.
You know, I told that story of the best is yet to come with a fork. You heard it so many times. I told the story of this lady that she was dying and she called her pastor to do the whole memorial service, prepare it together, right? And so she said, well, I want an open casket ceremony and please put a fork in my hand. And the pastor said, excuse me, why would you want a fork? And she said, well, I'm old already. And when I go to church after that, we have lunch together and the youth bring me my plate. And when they take it away, if they tell me, keep your fork. She says, I know that dessert is coming and the best is yet to come. And I always told this story and one day I got the call. I was speaking in a big camp meeting of a lot of people in Idaho. And it was my mother on the way to the hospital. And she said, I think this is it, She says, but don't worry, I'm holding a fork in my hand.
Bless her.
And so we're never going to forget that because she knew the story that I always told. And so we know the best is yet to come. And so we're going to see now Paul do something that will give us a clue that when we are in between, and we are all in between because this theology that we just shared with you is called the already and not yet. Already, Jesus has died, he has conquered, We know he has done for us what we couldn't do for ourselves. All the full benefits of what he has done have not yet been fulfilled. So we are in between, already and then not yet. So we're hoping Jesus will come soon and very soon. In between, we can be assured, we can live with assurance, even though we're in the middle of the storms.
Yep, that's it.
Woohoo!
Woohoo!
Yeah.
Exactly.
So let's keep going, because actually Paul will have more to say about this, and it will be repeated over and over that it has been 14 days, since this whole thing started. And
Drop down to 33. Is that where you're going?
Well, verse 27, it already says that when the 14th night came, we were driven about in the Adriatic Sea. About midnight, the sailors began to surmise that they were approaching some land, and there will be an attempt to escape.
Yeah, the sailors saying, let's get off of this ship.
Yeah, they have the little boat on top. They're trying to lower their little boat to get off. And Paul stops them and said, no, I got a promise from God that we are all going to be saved because God said so, no because you can, so.
He tells the centurion, if these men are off, we're all lost.
Yeah, where are we?
And the centurion, to save Paul's life, because one of his soldiers said, kill them all. Let's just kill everybody and just us get off.
Yes.
No. Every man for himself. Grab something. If you can swim, swim. But just before that, Elizabeth, here's the big verse 33. Just before dawn, Paul urges all the passengers to eat. He says, for 14 days, constant suspense, you haven't kept anything down, you're not eating. I urge you to take some food. Verse 34, you need it to survive. Not one of you will lose a single hair from his head.
That's how complete the salvation will be.
Yeah.
I assure you that neither one of you, verse 34, is going to lose a hair from your head. So please believe in what I'm telling you, because it's assured, because God said so.
Yep. My angel, my God, has promised.
Yes.
Now get to do verse 35, because
go ahead.
This is the grand moment. Nope.
Yes, okay, I'll go. So Luke puts this in a language that we all know very well because he has done it in his gospel. Having said this, Paul took bread and he gave thanks and he broke it and began to eat and gave it to them. So this is what we call Eucharistic words, like we do the Lord's Supper, where we take bread and Jesus said, from now on, until I come, when you're in between, until the day I come, keep doing this. Eat this bread thinking this is the broken body of Christ.
In remembrance
and
of me.
remember me, remember what I've done, and remember until I come, keep proclaiming my death, because you already know how this ends. So Luke puts this in these words of the Lord's Supper that he has used in the gospel.
That's beautiful. Cryptically embedded.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he took the bread, he gave thanks, he broke it, began to eat, and it says that they took him up on it.
They were all encouraged and ate some food themselves.
Yes.
Although altogether there were 276 of us on board.
Don't you love these details that Luke gives? He loves numbers. Yeah.
In verse 38, when they had eaten as much as they wanted. So everybody eats to their full.
Yes.
Fill.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And then here comes the last drama of this storm.
Yeah,
and
they
it's
lighten the
crash.
ship by throwing out the wheat into the sea. So this is the reason why the ship exists, because they're taking wheat from here to there, and they throw it all, and then eventually they crash, and they all are. Actually, we're going to read on verse 41. But striking a reef where two seas met, they ran the vessel aground, and the prow stuck fast and remained immovable, but the stern began to be broken up by the force of the waves. And this happens in a place where you can still visit today, called St. Paul's Bay. So you can actually go and see where this is, and actually still there. The way that it talks about the two seas meeting is still there today. The soldiers' plan was to kill the prisoners, so none of them would swim away and escape.
Centurion overrules.
Yep. Go ahead.
Everybody jumps off. Verse 44.
Yeah.
And then the next line, once safely ashore. Everybody survives.
Yes, and I love the way that NASB puts it. And so it happened that they all were brought safely to land. I always think of how is the story of the world going to be put in words? And sometimes I imagine God saying, and so it happened that all my children are now with me, because I assured them ahead of time how this will end. What difference does it make in the life of a person that is going through storms and difficulties to live eating the bread in the sense of remembering what Jesus has done and the assurance that we have of his second coming. What difference does it make when we face storms to live like that?
Because you know it's never the last word. When you take the bread, you are transported back 2,000 years to Calvary. The bleakest, I'm looking at the cross behind you, the bleakest moment in the history of the universe. It looks like the God of the universe has totally failed. He is lost at the last moment he loses. But when Jesus cries out, "It is finished," then the word is, no matter how dark the storm, no matter how dark, we win.
Yes.
I have won.
Yeah, we
And
know
your
how the
line-
story
your,
ends.
Your line, Jesus wins.
Jesus
Yeah.
wins. Yeah. That's why I think, and you know, our audience, many of us are going through storms in one way or another. You only have two choices. You go through the storms without believing, or you go through the storms believing. You don't have a choice not to go through the storms, right? Because Jesus said, in this world you'll have trouble, but be of good cheer. I have overcome the world, says Jesus. I'm already going to tell you how this story ends. So your only choices are, you go through the storm without faith, or you go without faith in Jesus, or you go through the storm with faith in Jesus.
Let me tell you something. As a pastor, you know this. I brought along my little prayer list because I've never had a prayer list as full as it is right now with parishioners who are battling the ultimate storm.
Yeah, wow.
Facing down just the terminus to life.
Yes.
Unless God directly intervenes. And I'm telling you what, I take my hat off to friends of Jesus, believers in Christ, who are able, because I've not gone through a storm as they've gone through it. Gone through that storm, going through that storm with such resolve, such commitment. I know whom I have believed and am persuaded that he is able to keep that which I committed unto him against that day. That's Paul.
Yes.
Paul says, guys, we can make this.
Yes.
Paul knows he's going to die.
Yes.
He's not going to have some grand vacation after he hits Rome.
Yeah.
He knows this is over.
But
It's his personal storm as well, but he stands with absolute confidence because of
Yes.
the victory
Yes.
behind him and the promise ahead of him.
Dwight, I am so thankful that you were able to join us for this whole series. You have brought so much, and we are thankful. Maybe we can do it again sometime.
Bless you.
Thank you so much for all your insights, and God bless you.
Thank you.
I'm going to head to the cross to finish the series. Well, and here we go. As Dwight has said, sometimes when we face the ultimate, death in this case, I saw my parents face it, both of them. Very few kids get to do what I did. I anointed both of my parents for death. I did both of their memorial service. And we started the whole series talking about that. And I saw them face death with absolute assurance in whom they had believed. And I want to finish this series at the cross because that's our assurance. We proclaim the cross until the day he comes. And you know what? Jesus will come again. And I would like to sing with you. You know the song, soon and very soon we are going to see the King. Know this is for sure. We know how the story ends, and Jesus wins.